ultimate tanking style. Hello and welcome to another Champions Online video by Snake Wildlife. Today I'm going to be giving a basic guide to being a PvE tank. This includes threat tanking and being able to survive anything PvE has to throw at you. Not only will you be an unstoppable superhero, but you will be the backbone of your team. There are many ways to creating tanks, of course, but this is the bare basics of a tank which can truly promise the team that he will never die.
I promise, I will never die.
Primary super stat is Dex in this example, which will make your heals critical often and give you a boost of damage. Constitution is a must-have, but we'll be using it as a secondary, and Presence is also a must-have for threat management and higher level self-healing. Do as you wish with your talents. I have put mine into my super stats, but if you believe you may have energy issues, it is always a good idea to grab some extra endurance, int, or rec here. I will use the other specialization trees to boost my defenses, but for Dex, having better crit rating and receiving more offense and defense from your items is always a good idea. As a tank, we need to boost our defense rating to great heights. We will increase our severity, and here is our first major tanking aspect, debuffing. Exposed weakness will weaken your enemy's defenses by 10% for the whole team. Protector roll fortified gear will give us a huge boost to our item defenses, and Bulwark is another major tanking point. In hybrid mode you will generate more threat, which is great in teams to prevent teammates from being the enemy target, whilst if you are playing on your own, the 10% extra health against the hardest fights in the game is something you're going to need. Bulwark is essential. Resolute provides large amounts of self-healing when large groups of enemies are trying to knock you around or prevent you from fighting, and Exhausting Strikes is another major tanking point. Every so often you will use your power builder, which now will grant a 10% reduction in the damage an enemy target can achieve. You can use anything you want here, but when it comes to Shadow Colossus, you'll need even more ability to withstand attacks that will hit you for over 100,000 damage. I will use Sentry Tree. Fortified gear will stack with the previous fortified gear used earlier, providing great damage mitigation, and Sentry Aura will further increase reduction in damage, which is what you're all about. 2 points into Precise will increase your single target damage and ability to heal, and Fortify is another major tanking aspect, giving you an almost permanent 6% reduction in damage and self-heal boost. Sentry Mastery is a good choice if you enjoy running content mostly with teams. I don't recommend Protector Mastery because I tend not to rely on active defenses. I feel if I have to use an active defense power, to me that tells me that the build is not working. I personally prefer to solo things, so I will make more use out of the extra damage, critical power, and avoidance. Now onto the build itself. I'm going to make mine slightly themed under my own character, which is Supernatural. The good thing about this build design is that most of the powers you can choose for yourself. I'll simply be pointing out the types of ability you absolutely need to include to make this tank build work. Here is our first major required power attribute, Challenging Strikes Advantage. This will reduce enemy damage output and create more threat for yourself for a period of time. It is a good idea to choose your energy unlock early, to unlock greater powers faster. I am Supernatural, so Supernatural power is the obvious choice for me. Here comes another major tanking point, which is not required, but if you want to solo the hardest bosses easier, I highly recommend a power which applies Fear, and makes your life easier. Fear, yet again, reduces the amount of damage coming from your opponent, to the team or yourself. Any normal tank can use a shield of any kind, but you want to be an ultimate tank, and the greatest defensive measure in the game for that is Ebon Void. Make sure you fully rank this shield, including the extra rank. The key to tanking the hardest things in the game is to keep up your defenses, and as you continue to block with Ebon Void, your defenses will continue to increase. You need to maintain these stacks of defense if you wish to absorb hits of over 100,000 often. The small extra heals from this shield are also a welcome bonus. I recommend Defiance as your defensive passive, as it grants large amounts of energy when you receive damage and does not leave your fate to chance or when the next spike attack gets you. With bosses such as Shadow Colossus or Gravitar, that is sometimes instant and unpredictable when you are struck for large amounts of damage. Here comes the two most important and essential parts of your tank build. You need self-heals. You need to bring yourself back from near death to full in short time before something else happens. Choose Conviction and put it to rank 3, and Bountiful Chi Resurgence. On Bountiful Chi Resurgence you only need the extra advantage, as this gives us plenty of healing when we dodge an attack, which is fantastic for handling large groups of enemies at once. During boss fights you need extra defenses, extra heals, and most importantly, high resistance to knocks. You won't be tanking much if you're flying through the air all the time, and fall down damage is a great penalty on high health characters, as it removes a percentage of your health. I consider Circle of Primal Dominion to be essential, as it also increases your threat generation when in tank role. When in hybrid role, you still receive more threat generation thanks to Bulwark, which we looked at earlier. Whilst using this guide to create your own tank, try to find other powers which reduce enemy damage and increase your own. These will help you turn high damage attacks from enemies into something much more manageable. I mean choosing Miniature Drive as an example, which does just that. Another major tanking point is that you need to reduce damage of small mobs and large groups to figures so small that you can just ignore them entirely as being any kind of threat. To do this, I strongly recommend Inertial Dampening Field, or IDF for short, which reduces incoming damage by a flat number and also supports all of your teammates to a lesser extent with the same effect. The rest of the build's choices and the main powers of your build can be anything, of course. It is definitely a greater choice to go for powers which return life to yourself. Some good examples include Holdout Shot with the advantage, Summon Shadows with the advantage, Ego Weaponry with the life drain advantage, Fissure with the return life advantage, and Devour Essence. I'm going to select Devour Essence and add the advantage Crippling Challenge. Crippling Challenge along with Challenging Strikes are the two most important things you need to maintain if you're going to be a threat tank. By using these two powers often, you will always usually be in control of the attention of the target. Even as a boss tanker, Crippling Challenge even further reduces the damage of your enemy and taunts the target, which can save teammates from falling. For ultimate tanking, you must have Crippling Challenge. It is important to always increase your own damage as well. Search for debuffs. Here I am selecting Defile, which debuffs my enemy against toxic damage, which Devour Essence, my main attack, will react to because it's toxic damage. Debuffs are far more important and more potent than self-buffs. Last on our guide to ultimate tanking is interrupts. Try to use them, like Ice Cage for example, with the extra advantage. If you are able to use this power safely and are pretty good with your timing, you may be able to cancel charged enemy attacks, like Gravitar's Yellow Bubble, or temporarily stop a Shadow Colossus from using a charged ability, like its AoE. This doesn't always work and can only be done once within a period of time, but can save you, your teammates, and has done for me countless times. Travel powers are entirely your own choice, but I do recommend acrobatics, as there is not much of an energy penalty and you can get around the battlefield faster. I am only using mostly blue and green gear with mods around ranks 3 to 5, and these are the stats I am able to pull off. With better gear, I'm sure you can easily go higher than this. Be sure to add plus dodge and plus avoidance to your primary defense, as it is usually standard with most builds these days. You can see now that our specializations have caused our defense rating to rise to a great tanking figure, providing a permanent 33% damage resistance. And with better gear, I'm sure your tank will be even higher than that. Critical severity is not as high as other characters normally, but you're a tank. Your DPS is not supposed to be the highest. What matters is that you have the aggro, and nothing is going to stand in your way. By using this guide, you will create a tank that enemies like the Great Teleosaurus cannot harm. Here is a quick reminder of the biggest factors you need to include on your tank. Now that you have a vague idea of how to make a build, there's only one question left. How good are you at tanking?